that I have to keep my set clean tonight. So I'm just going to tell you about my mom. She's a gynecologist. So she basically gets to do what every guy wants to do. You know what I'm saying? Have a well-paid job. So growing up, my mom would go on TV and she would talk about women's health like a TV doctor. And she would use air quotes a lot. But as a child, I didn't really understand what air quotes meant. But I just wanted to be like my mom, you know? So I would use air quotes generously. And I just came off as this like really creepy child. Like back in kindergarten, the teacher would ask us like, "Oh, sweetie, like what do your parents do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, my parents are doctors." And then it'd be like that day in kindergarten when they go around the classroom and ask you what you want to like be when you grow up, like as if you had a choice. And she would be like, "Oh, like little Billy, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And he'd be like, "I want to be a vet." And she'd be like, "Good, little Billy." And then she'd go to the next kid and she would be like, "Little Ricky, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And he'd be like, "I want to be a socially aware feminist with a great credit score." And she'd be like, "Great, little Ricky, live your truth." And then she'd get over to me and she'd be like, "What do you want to be, little Jana?" And I'd be like, "I want to be a dancer." And then it'd be like carpool, you know, back when parents were Uber. And then she'd be like, "Oh, who's that coming to pick you up after school today, sweetie?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that's my daddy." But then I grew up and I went to work at the happiest place on earth. You guys all know where that is, obviously, right? Come on, shout it out.
Out that big house.
Right. It's Sears. No, I'm just kidding. I went to work at Disney World. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Jana, were you a Disney princess? Close, guys. I worked at Fast Pass. And at Fast Pass, we had the strictest uniforms. Like, we had to wear these shirts with our collars done all the way up, like Handmaid's Tale. And we had these shorts that, like, came with, like, a built-in camel toe. It was so good for my sex life. So good. And if I didn't have my buttons done all the way up, my manager would yell at me. And he would, like, be like, "Why aren't your buttons done all the way up?" And I'd be like, "Excuse me, have you seen Princess Jasmine? She's like practically Girls Gone Wild. Have you seen Pocahontas? She's like straight out of the WAP video. And have you seen Ariel? She's like one seashell away from free the nipple." Now guys, I was doing this set for my mom at home. You know, like all cool comedians do. And I was rehearsing this set at home because I live at home, you know, like all cool comedians do. And my mom basically now has my set memorized. And so she's in the kitchen and she hears me forget that last joke. And she goes, "Take it from free the nipple." I was like, my pandemic is going so great. Do you guys ever feel like you can't get the Paragard IUD theme song out of your head? This guy knows what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know, Paragard is a DUI. An IUD. You do not want to get those two things mixed up. Trust me, I-95 gets weird. But anyway, so I can't get this IUD theme song out of my head, right? It's like super catchy. It's like, "With Paragard, I can keep living my life just like before. Yeah." And you're like, okay, this is catchy. So I was like, I'm gonna get an IUD. And guys, that's when you know that a jingle for a product is really good, is when you're like, I'm gonna put that product in my cervix. So I go to get this IUD, right? And I put my left foot in the stirrups. And I put my right foot in the stirrups, that's right. And I play the only song that you can play when you're about to get copper voluntarily inserted into your uterus. Eye of the Tiger. And I play that song because I need to pump myself up. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't want to cry, you know? Because I don't want to come off as a pussy. Or at least, I don't want my pussy to come off as a pussy. Thank you guys. You guys have been a great audience.